I have to share this story with all of you before I do the song here. Because I know if Bonnie were alive, she would most definitely um, tell you the story. So I'm going to tell the story in honor of her because I think she would want me to include the story before I do the song. I'm pretty sure a lot of you have seen the cartoon Frosty the Snowman. When I was about 3 years old, I want to roughly say around 3 or 4 years old, it might have been two, I don't know. The first time I saw Frosty the Snowman, I cried, believe it or not. I actually cried when I saw Frosty the Snowman. And I'm pretty sure you all know the scene that I probably cried at. And it was the scene where Frosty was in the, I believe it was the greenhouse where they had all the plants and whatnot. And Frosty melted. And that magician guy locked Frosty into that greenhouse there. And Frosty melted. And when Frosty melted, I literally cried to the point where it drove my grandfather bonkers, believe it or not. Yes, I drove my grandfather bonkers when I was a little kid because Frosty melted. And, and according to what Bonnie told me, when I was crying, I just kept saying over and over and over again that I wanted Frosty. I want Frosty. I want Frosty. I want Frosty. And according to what Bonnie told me, it was so annoying that my grandfather gave my mother money to bring me to McDonald's just to shut me up so that I would stop crying. Because if I went to McDonald's, I mean, that was my favorite place when I was a little kid, and it still is to this day. So, anyhow, my mother and Bonnie both took me to McDonald's just to get me to be quiet and just to stop crying, because that's how sad I was when when Frosty melted. And every year that Bonnie and we watched Frosty the Snowman, even through my mid-childhood years, my teenage years, my adult years, Bonnie would always remind me of the time that I cried when Frosty melted, and it was just, oh my Lord. And even every time I watch Frosty the Snowman, every time that scene comes on, Bonnie would imitate me crying and everything. And as I grew older, I just laughed, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that when I was a little kid. And who knows, when I ever have a kid, I wonder if my kid will ever do the same thing. And even though Bonnie and my mother aren't here, and if I ever do have kids in the future, and if my kid ever does that, I'm just going to probably look up into the heavens, and I'm going to be like, Bonnie and Mom, how dare you do this to me? How dare you bring me back to that torture? That's if that ever happens. So, but anyhow, I'm going to do the song Frosty the Snowman for you, and no, I'm not going to cry, but I figured before I sing you the song, I tell you the story of what happened to me when I saw Frosty the Snowman, the cartoon. So at that time, they didn't have Frosty Returns. They didn't have that until later. But anyhow, I'm going to do the song for you. Frosty the Snowman was a jolly, happy soul, with a corncob pipe and a button nose and 2 eyes made out of coal. Frosty the Snowman is a fairy tale, they say. He was made of snow, but the children know how he came to life one day. There must have been some magic in that old silk hat they found, for when they placed it on his head, he began to dance around. Oh, Frosty the Snowman was alive as he could be, and the children say he could laugh and play just the same as you and me. Oh, thumpity-thump, thump, thumpity-thump, thump, look at Frosty go. Oh, thumpity-thump, thump, thumpity-thump, thump, over the hills of snow. Frosty the Snowman knew the sun was hot that day, so he said, let's run and we'll have some fun now before I melt away. Down to the village with a broomstick in his hand, running here and there all around the square, saying, catch me if you can. They led them down the streets of town right to the traffic cop. He only paused a moment when he heard him holler, stop! Frosty the Snowman had to hurry on his way, but he waved goodbye saying, don't you cry, I'll be back again someday.